All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming this afternoon. This is Angel Voices, creating a community of AAC users. Our speaker today is Kate Ahern. She's right there. I've known her for about 14 hours now.
We go way back.
Maybe 15.
Yeah, probably 15
Add
now.
correctly. I've learned quickly that she's somebody who's a master of pragmatic application. So that's what I'm going to defer to her for. She's going to be somebody who's going to show you how to use this stuff that seems very up there and out there. So she's an expert in this communication field. So she will be available for questions afterward, as will our speaker from before, Ms. Erin Sheldon. Reminder of all the protocol things: cell phones away, speak quietly if you have to share, and if you want to ask a question, you're going to speak into the microphone, and she's going to try and leave some space for you to ask questions. But again, afterward, Erin and Kate are making themselves available for you if you have questions around AAC, around communication, around everything they've been talking about. All right, so without further ado, Miss Kate Ahern.
Thank you. Thank you very much. As I always say, if only I'd been this popular in high school, back when it mattered. So this group is, or this session is about Angel Voices, and Angel Voices is an AAC social group, play group that we started running in the Boston area in Massachusetts. And I'm just going to tell you the story of how that happened and what it looks like and how it went, and give you some ideas for if you want to do something like this in your own community. It ended up being an amazing and rewarding experience, but also a learning experience in a lot of ways. And we, Saban and I, and Tanya, who was the speech therapist who worked with me a little bit on it, thought that we should tell people about it because it was, I think, pretty unique for kids from ages about 3 to 17 to come together once a month with their systems and do activities focused on communication outside of school. So Angel Voices, so a brief history. So right now we're kind of a work in progress. We're an evolving group of parents and children with Angelman, and we're focusing on augmentative and alternative communication. And I'm going to assume, since this is like the 4th or 5th AAC workshop offered in the past 2 days, that I don't need to recover all the territory about AAC. So I apologize if I mentioned something that you haven't heard yet, but I definitely, whatever I'm saying, I've either heard said or said myself over the past day and a half. So what happened was, beginning in the summer of 2014, I was working with a preschooler who had Angelman syndrome, and we had sort of gotten to this weird situation where she had contracted, the school had hired me through the agency I work for, Easter Seals, and I'm not allowed to steal clients from work because that's bad and unethical, so I don't do that. And also, I like having a job, so I don't do it for that reason too. But because we were in this situation where the cost of having me come to your house and work with your child through the agency I work for is much higher than the cost of contracting me privately, we were trying to figure out a way to keep the cost down for the family a little bit. And what we came up with was, we had a lot of local preschool age, and by a lot I mean like 4, preschool age children with Angelman, and by local I mean like within 50 miles. So we thought, well, maybe once a month we'll do a little music and movement group. So we had one session in the parent house, in that parent's house, and it sort of exploded really fast. And by the next time we met, we were renting a gym, and then we moved to a rec hall, and it got pretty big. And the size went up and down over time, but it ended up being something that turned out to be very popular. So eventually I had to get a speech therapist to run the group with me. That was more because preschool and younger kids is not my area of expertise. I work usually with older kids. I taught intensive special needs children with complex communication disorders for 15 years. But for 12 of those years, I taught either high school or ages 18 to 22. So the whole preschool thing wasn't really my forte, although I think by the end of this year, I'm a little better at it. But I was feeling uncomfortable, so I got a speech therapist to run everything with me. So we came up with a flyer, and we got a logo, and we got more and more parents involved. And so the general idea was that one Sunday afternoon a month, we would hold these social groups or play groups for children with Angelman who were using any kind of AAC. So even if they were just using some picture symbols on the board, that was fine with us. We'd take it and run with it. It was a parent and child group, so we expected the parents to be present, and their role was sort of in the role of behavioral, sort of just helping the kids stay focused and have their sensory needs met, but also they were supposed to be modeling language as we did the different activities we had planned. And then, for practical reasons, we said things like we need at least 2 kids to run the group because, otherwise we might as well just go to the person's house and that sort of thing. So why do we want to present about this? We really are hoping that other motivated families might want to start their own takeoff on this sort of group. It had a lot of value, I think, for all the families involved, and we're hoping that other people will want to do this too. We want to share a little bit about the group activities and the setup and what worked in case you want to go run who have one of these groups. And we want to promote the idea of robust communication for all of our kids, that it's possible to make it work, even though you may have a speech therapist saying your kid's not ready, or you may have your doubts at some point, or say, my child can't even point, or whatever, that there are ways to make this happen. So one of the first things we did is we set up a private Facebook group, and we never did any real advertising. It was all word of mouth. We're lucky that our local ASF group, the Upper Northeast Regional ASF group, one of the moms, Saban, who's here, is on the board of that. So she was able to help us sort of get information out. And all we really asked was that parents RSVP 24 hours ahead of time, because we needed to let the space know if we were going to cancel, otherwise we'd still have to pay. And we shared a lot of information. We would share information about pod trainings that were coming. People would share information, pictures of their kids using their devices. It ended up being a really great sort of intimate group of 28 moms and a few dads who were sharing about what their kids were doing in between the sessions. So for this year, how it worked was we met, at first we met on Sunday mornings, and then because of the space that we ended up using, we moved to Sunday afternoons. The cost was $25 per session per family. We were really trying to keep it cheap, because ultimately I ended up out $400, and Saban ended up out $500. Keeping it cheap didn't work to our advantage, but we think the families appreciated it. The space was really expensive. Space was definitely one of our major problems. We're really hoping for next year to find a free space. And eventually what happened was we had to divide into 2 groups because the younger group got so large. So the younger group was ages 9 and under. It was run by a speech language therapist who works in a preschool with AAC users. And I would assist, and I'm a special ed teacher as well as a AT specialist. I would assist doing AAC modeling during the group and with helping with some of the behavioral pieces with attention and participation. And we asked the parents to participate and model. And a lot of times we also had siblings along who would participate and model, which was awesome. And for the little kids, the sessions were usually some singing and then a sensory-based craft sort of activity. And then always music and dancing, because really, how can you not have music and dancing? And then we had our teens and tweens group, and that's was my group, so I feel a particular fondness for the teens and tweens. It was 10 and up. Sometimes we only had 2 kids, and that was okay. That was fine with us. We ended up by the end being a much tighter knit than the little kids because we were a little bit smaller. And I ran it, and sometimes the SLP stayed and helped, and sometimes she didn't. It just depended on where, what was going on. And again, the parents stayed to model and help with behavior. And we usually did writing activity with some co-authoring or some scripted writing or chart writing stuff. A few times we tried games, and I'll talk about that in a minute, that was not our most successful activity. Once we did a craft, and then of course we did lots of music and dance breaks sort of as needed to deal with sensory levels of arousal. We decided to have themes to sort of focus the groups. In the end, I think the younger kids abandoned the themes, and we pretty much stuck with it with the older kids. So we did music and movement. We did a getting to know you, all about me sort of group. We did a winter group in January, which, considering, we're from Boston and we had 9 feet of snow, was, I'm not so sure we all wanted to be talking about winter at that point, but we did. And it let us talk about Elsa and Let It Go. So, that had to happen too. We did some Dr. Seuss stuff. We did some St. Patrick's Day. I don't know what happened in April. Did we even meet in April? I don't remember ever doing transportation. Maybe I skipped the theme that month. I'm not. It's all vague in my head. We did a Mother's Day, and then in June. In June we didn't do Father's Day because we ended up having to combine the little kids with the big kids, so it got a little crazy. So we had to be really flexible with all of this, as you can hear from me trying to remember what happened. It definitely wasn't something where we made a plan and followed it. It was definitely something that it evolved, and we tried to just go with it. So let's talk about some of the group activities we did that we were using to work on our communication skills with our AAC systems. So for the little kids, we did a lot of music and movement, and the goals were things like greeting and taking leave, so saying hello and goodbye. We were trying to build group cohesion. One of the things that we saw with a lot of the children in the group is that they were sort of adult oriented. They wanted to be interacting with the adults who were there, the other parents, their own parents, me, the speech therapist, and they were interested in each other, but they didn't know how to interact with each other or how to approach each other. So really working on getting some connection between the kids. We did a lot of work on increasing receptive language and having that all be visual. So we had picture symbols for everything that we did, or we were modeling on the devices. And you can see in the picture that, of the 3 kids that you can see in full there, they all have a device. One of them it's on the floor, but they all have a device. And we were modeling the whole time what we were doing as we did it. And I'm going to guess from the fact that our hands are on our heads that we were doing some sort of head, shoulders, knees, and toes there, but I don't completely remember. And then we worked on specific words, like wait. So we had a couple songs we did that worked on waiting. And we worked on like body parts and where to find those in our AAC systems. We used music as a motivator. So like, all right, let's finish this one thing we're doing. Or if you can sit for one more turn, then we're going to do a music activity. And then we'd use it as a reward. So once they sat, we would do another music activity. And then we tried to use music to modulate sensory arousal. So I've done a lot of work with music therapists, and my thesis in graduate school was on using music to teach assistive technology, which kind of seems like a huge coincidence now that I ended up where I am, and that was my thesis, because I had no idea I would end up doing what I do now. But so we tried to have, faster paced music if the kids were getting sluggish, and calming music if they were over aroused or having trouble staying present. We let the kids pick the music a lot, especially the kids who always wanted to be running out of the room. We found that if their music was playing, they would stay. So we would try to, if a kid was getting antsy to take off out the door, we'd try to get them to pick the song so they'd stay for the song. So I have a little video clip of us doing an action song. And I don't think Jess knows she's in this video, but oh well. And I'm holding up the picture symbols for like wake up. You can't see me because I'm also holding the camera. So we're working on weight. So that's, we did a lot of songs like that, and we would try to think about the words that were in the song and be ready to show them. All of the kids had different iPad apps. And I think one actually also had a dedicated device, a Dynavox. So I had all of those apps on my iPad. So I was actually constantly multitasking through the different apps so I could show it with each app. So the first time in the first chorus where you say, wait a minute, I showed it on Pro Loco. And the next chorus where we did, wait a minute, I showed it on Pod. So I was trying to constantly model the different devices. And that was definitely one of the not having enough hands harder moments of the groups. And the singing was definitely a favorite part. And then the next thing we would do would usually be some sort of sensory recipe. So we did lots of like sensory bottles and that kind of stuff. And we really weren't looking for the products to be good. Like most of the time, I think they ended up in the trash before we even exited the building. It was more about the process of making them. So we're looking at attention and focus and waiting for your turn, which was huge with this group. We were working on vocabulary words like open and different, and those different core words that no matter what system the kid was using were words that were in their system. And we were trying to create opportunities for the kids to request and comment and ask questions and do all sorts of things besides just the requesting that seems to be the staple of what we do. And Tanya, who ran this activity usually, I ran it a couple times, but Tanya usually ran it. She was really, really excellent at using humor and sabotage to bring the kids in. So you're going to see the next little video clip. She models for a child how to ask to see what's in the bag. And she just has like a grocery bag with the stuff we're going to use to do the craft. And when he asks to see it, she opens it really fast and closes it. And that was all part of pulling the kid in because it was a surprise. So now the child was engaged. And then the child tried to grab for what was in the bag, which is what she expected, of course. So then she was able to say, no, you're just looking. So she was able to take about 15 minutes just to get the things out of the bag, with each kid asking to look and asking her to open the bag and asking to have one, and really using all that language before we even started doing the activity. So I'm going to show you a brief clip of her doing that. Oh, no, I'm not. It's not the clip I thought. They're in a different order. So I'll go back to it because here's the clip I wanted. So here she is modeling and then having a child ask to see what's in the bag that she has.
Yeah, right here. Oh, different. You can get something different. Here you go.
It wasn't the clip I thought. I have many clips of that session. But so you can see that what happened was that she modeled different. He said, I think she modeled want, and then he said something different. And what he meant was another child had just picked, and he didn't want what that child had. And nobody did, because it was like this, something in the bag is always not the thing you want. Like it's, sheet of paper, and you're like, everybody else got hair gel and I got a sheet of paper, which the whole point is that child has to say, I don't like this. Can I have something else? So, and then here we were making Play-Doh. I'm not really sure whatever it was. I remember that it didn't work out well in the end because the ingredient adding process somehow went awry. But here I am modeling with the child's device. So you'll hear the device talking. That's me modeling, and I'm also running the camera because that was my job. So, but you can see that we're going to do some stirring, and I'm modeling for him the language.
You gonna grab the spoon? Can you do it with me? Here we go. I can't do it by myself.
Stir. Look, stir.
1, 2.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Maybe we should go faster.
You done?
Only 6?
Yeah, you're done. You're done.
Okay, all done.
All right.
So that's another one of, just the sensory activities that we did and how we did it. And then for the older kids, we ran the groups a little bit differently. We always did a writing activity. And a lot of it was sort of predictable chart writing where we had sort of a sentence that needed to be finished and the kids could add their information to it, or where we were describing something and the kids could give any word they wanted that related to the thing we were describing so we could write a group poem. And then at one point we also did Mother's Day letters, which were really cute. Like, it was really cute to see what the kids thought. Like, my mother's favorite TV show is, and to see what the kids thought their mom's favorite TV show was and that sort of thing. And I remember there was a funny answer, but I don't remember what it was. Do you? She loves Good Luck, Charlie, according to her daughter. But who doesn't? I mean, it's a great show. I know every episode by heart. Nobody here is a kid who's into Good Luck, Charlie? Oh, just a few. Everybody else, you're missing out. If you're going to have an obsession, it might as well be a show that's actually tolerable to sit through. So our goals were increasing attention to tabletop activities. Sitting down at the table and doing something, it was not our forte as a group. So being able to sit down and do an activity. Positively supporting pro-social behavior. Well, it turned out it was usually the same 3 kids in this group. When we got the 3 of them together, we could change the behavior of any one child by rewarding the other 2. So if 2 of them were sitting and the other was running away, if I heaped tons of praise and attention onto the 2 who were sitting, the other one would come back. So I never had to scold or do anything like that because I was able to always use that dynamic to get where we wanted to go. We were trying to promote writing as a leisure activity, that the kids could express their ideas and that could be something fun to do. So we did a lot of these sort of collage kind of activities to go along with our writing. And we were trying to use AAC in context with a changing focus. So sometimes we were doing adjectives, sometimes we were providing salient information like what's your favorite thing to do. And we're again trying to increase the child-to-child peer attention to each other so the focus wasn't so much on the adults. One of the things that we discovered is that fist bumps are really big in our teen and tween Angelman group. Fist bumps were definitely a major reward. So here are 2 of the poems that we ended up writing. The first one was about snow, and the poem was bright fog, light big, Santa Claus, cold, cold snow. And, it's probably not going to be published in any literary magazines next week, but I think for some kids who most people would say aren't really capable of communicating, they do a pretty good job writing a poem about snow. And then the next one was Dr. Seuss Day, and first we came up with a rhyme, and our rhyme was fist bump, and then we had to make that rhyme with something, and we had a suggestion of Gangnam Style, and since that didn't rhyme, and since it was Dr. Seuss and you could just make up words, we went with fist bump, Gangnam Mump, and every kid had to give me a sentence I like too. So fist bump, Gangnam Mump, I like to bounce the ball. Fist bump, Gangnam Mump, I like to swim and go to the mall. It took some creativity on my part to make them rhyme in the end, but it worked out. Fist bump, Gangnam Mump, hats for everyone. Fist bump, Gangnam Mump, writing poems is fun. And we knew it was going to end with writing poems is fun. And it's pretty accurate. I mean, the kids really did say things that they liked to do. It wasn't sort of random button activations. We tried some games. Our goals were to participate as a group, to use our AAC, to follow rules, and to take turns. Games were not the highlight. We did not excel at playing games, and eventually abandoned the idea to try again next year. The games were tough because a lot of what we tried were guessing games, so we would hide something. And one child would hide something while the other children weren't looking, and then the other children had to ask questions to try to guess where it was. But like any good child with Angelman, the minute somebody said, "Where is it?" they would go get it. So guessing where it was didn't work out, because the moment somebody would say, like, "Is it under the ping pong table?" they'd be like, "Oh, you want it? I'll go get it." And they go get it. So not my most successful game playing ever. And we tried a few others. It was definitely not our biggest success story, which is why I don't have a video clip. It was also tough because the teen and tween group, I don't have as many videos because I couldn't run the group and model and have the cat. I just ran out of hands, so there aren't as many videos. And then, of course, we did a lot of music and dancing, so we used that for sensory breaks and sensory regulation. We use it for communication opportunities, so requesting, commenting, directing people, and increasing a sense of connectiveness. And I didn't put it on here, but I think we also used it to work on having safe bodies while moving around other people, which I think was really important for this group of teenagers who are physically growing so fast and having so many impulses with their hands, to be able to dance around other people and not pull anybody's hair and not hit anybody. Not that they would have meant to, but, you know, that their bodies didn't just impulsively do that. And we do have a little video. This is one of Samantha's favorite videos of all time, of us dancing on the To Let It Go. Well, it's short.
Go. Make some snow.
The ribbon is our snow that we're shooting around the room. She's so cute. How can you not laugh? And then we went back and we talked about dancing with our snow. So what worked and what was effective? When we paid attention to sensory regulation, it went better. When we were flexible and we differentiated the activities, it went better. When we tried to go low mess, it went way better. When we remembered to be chew safe, it went way better. The activity where you fill the plastic bags with hair gel, yeah, that's not a chew safe activity. Just saying. Having our pre-made visual supports and aided language displays, that really helped it, so I didn't have to be running 3 apps at the same time. And just being attentive to using the positive behavior supports and rewarding the kids who were sitting in such a way that the kids who weren't would want to come over and that sort of thing. What was less effective is if we try to do anything longer than 8 to 10 minutes, and we built up to 8 to 10 minutes. When we started, we were not getting anywhere near 8 minutes. Anything messy that required cleanup, we'd lose the kids during the cleanup. And that's where we'd see hair pulling and hitting, because the adults were trying to clean up the flour or the whatever, and then we lose control of the group. And we couldn't, if we got larger than 6, it couldn't be done. So as far as space, what we learned is a room with a space that allowed for our movement and dancing, but also had tables and chairs worked best. Sitting on the floor the whole time, especially for the teens and tweens, didn't really work. Accessible bathrooms were helpful. Bathrooms we could get into were helpful. We learned from that day we had at the gym. We went out and bought like 10 sets of twin sheets on clearance, because the room we ended up liking the best in the rec hall had computers. So we would put the sheets over the computers so that the kids couldn't see them. They knew they were there, but they couldn't see them, and it really helped cut down on the desire to go over and, pluck the keys off the keyboard or whatever. We didn't have it, but it would have been nice if we had Wi-Fi and access to other technology. I'm extrapolating that would have been nice. We never had it. In rooms that were too small or crowded, that didn't work. Anything breakable didn't work. We managed to flip over a computer on a receptionist's desk and luckily not break it, but that was tough. When we were in the gym, that was tough. It was just too big, and the sensory pieces were overwhelming, the flickering lights and the echoes. Any place where we had to control the volume of the kids didn't work, as you could all guess it wouldn't. And frankly, it was too expensive and that didn't work. So some interesting things that happened is, this is Samantha, and we found out that Samantha does okay in the group if she's there first. But if she has to come into the room when everybody is already there, she was not really able to do that. But because she had her device, she was able to say, I don't feel safe. There are too many people, which is something I see her privately as well. So we have been working on that for a while. But she was able to come in and say that. So the times that she came in late, she would stay back. So you can see her sitting over behind the billiards table or in the doorway. She was fully participating. She was just choosing to stay a distance where she felt safe. So she would stay that distance and be completely engaged, but we were respecting the fact that she was saying it did not feel safe to come in the room. And she would also say, like, I don't feel safe, I need to hide my eyes. And she would hide her eyes for a while, and then she'd be back and she'd be okay. And if we got loud, she'd hide her eyes again. But really watching the anxiety and looking for strategies to teach the kids to use their communication to interfere with their own anxiety ended up being, I think, one of the most surprising results was watching the kids learning how to do that. Another thing that we learned with one of the kids, with Jason, who you see here, is that for him, deep pressure and physical proximity were calming. So whereas Samantha was very clear that she needed space when it was too much, Jay really needed someone to sort of get him in and give him some deep pressure if he was going to be able to stay. And so for him, it was really working on him asking to sit on somebody's lap, usually mine or his mom. Well, pretty much always mine or his mom. And for us to give him that pressure. If we did that, he could stay with the group. And if we didn't, he would be running out the door. So really paying attention to that need and giving him a way to tell us about it. And then this one young man, he made it amazing progress. And our once a month group was just a teeny part of it. But when he started, he had no system in place. By October and November, he had a pod book in place. And after the first session, I'm one of those people who doesn't believe in the whole they don't have symbolic recognition thing. But because I'm well steeped in my field, there were a few moments where I believed that I don't know if he has that. But I just talked to his mom a few days ago, and he just got insurance to fund an iPad with the pod app. So he, in the course of a year, went from nothing to a book to a high-tech device. And we've got a long journey ahead, but I think part of it was that he saw other kids like him using the app he was going to use, and he got to use it on my iPad or the speech therapist's iPad at group, and his mom got to see what it looked like when people were using it, and then the school got to hear about that he tried it and it went well, and so it eventually led to him having a system. So by the end of the 9 months that we did this, every kid who came consistently either made significant progress or had moved from no system to a high-tech system. So as of right now, every kid who regularly attended has a high-tech system in place, which is huge. I mean, as you can imagine, it's huge that we would have like 100% results on that. So some of the things we learned were, like, parents are willing to travel great distances to get to this kind of group. We met in sort of southwest of Boston, and families from Concord, New Hampshire, which is like a 2-hour drive, were driving down to come to the group. That the kids really thrived in this educational leisure environment that played to their strengths. It was very visual. It had the sensory inputs. It was very social. We had a lot of music, all the things that they needed to be successful. We also learned that if the weather was bad, nobody was going to come. And then when the weather got really good, nobody was going to come. And one of the hard lessons that personally I learned was it just fiscally wasn't sustainable. That we're going to need to change some things next year to keep it going because, well, I'd like to pretend I'm independently wealthy. I'm not. And the landlord likes the rent. And it doesn't work for me to say, I gave it to the Boys and Girls Club so our group could meet. And some unexpected things were that all of the participants moved to high tech. A lot of the parents noted that Their child typically had too much anxiety to participate in groups with other children, but they were fine at Angel Voices. I think the parents feel a lot more of a sense of community. The ones I've talked to, I know do. I know that the ability to share between myself and the speech therapist and talk to the parents and point them to resources was huge. The fact that we could say, well, you can borrow that device from the state assistive technology loan library if you want to, or I have a contact who can get you the app for free if you can find a way to get the iPad. Like, to be able to share that information with people as they needed it. And it turns out that all 3 of the kids who came to the tweens and teens groups are going to, in August, be going to a family augmentative communication camp in Maine that isn't all AAC users. It's all AAC users, it isn't all Angelman. And I think that's amazing that, they're all going to come to, it's a camp I've been volunteering at for years. They're all going to come up to camp and they're going to get to spend 5 days with AAC users while the parents get 5 days of training, which is an incredible experience. And for next year, we're really looking at, number 1, a lower cost space, preferably a free space. We've already booked some parent trainings, and we're thinking about doing modeling and adult beverage parties where parents will go out to dinner and we will partake in adult beverages, but practice modeling on our devices while we're doing it, just to get some practice with our modeling in. I really want to increase our library of visual supports that we have. That's something I've been working on. I want to have a bunch of pod books available for new kids to come in to take, because there's something that you can do fast, and once it's made, you can do it fast, and it's pretty cheap. It's not like buying an iPad. I want to start videoing more of the sessions, so I'm going to grow another arm. I have some doctors working on that for me, so I can have the camera and the modeling and also run the group. I don't know how that's going to play out in the long run. We're considering trying to find a way to share more educational info specific to sort of our area, to Boston and Massachusetts. And we just bought a web domain, and we're going to put up a website and see if we can use that for some more resource sharing. And just some tips I have is, although in our case we had myself and then I brought in a speech therapist to run it, you don't need that. I completely believe that parents could run these groups themselves. They're not going to be perfect, but our group wasn't perfect and we had 2 professionals. So I think that parents could totally do this themselves if they don't have a professional to help them out. You only really need 2 kids for it to be a group, and that's where we started. Having it at a neutral space went better than having it at somebody's house, because if you're at somebody's house, there's just A, too much stuff, and B, one of the kids lives there, and they know where stuff is and how to get up the stairs, and so it's much easier if it's neutral. And you have to let yourself have a learning curve. If the activity isn't working or people cancel, you just have to keep going. A lot of this year was faking it until you make it. And also Siri is not available. So if you'd like to use Siri, you should connect to the internet. There we go. And that's it. So I'll take questions specifically about this, and then Erin, if she's here, she ran away. What? Okay.
What? Yeah, you've wrapped up a little early, but that's cool. So she might be on her way back still. I saw her at the hotel in some space that was not here. So questions. I can bring the microphone to you, or you can come to the microphone.
I wasn't in here when you were talking about the pods. I'm curious what exactly. Obviously, it's on an iPad.
No, actually, pods are a book, and there's a version of it that's available on an iPad. Could you stand up and hold it up for me? That's a pod book, and that's the pod app. So pod is pragmatically organized dynamic display, and it is a communication system for kids with complex communication disabilities that started in Australia and seems to be very popular in Angelman. And all of the Angelman kids I see privately use pod. So, and a lot of my girls with Rett syndrome use pod, and it's pretty popular and well known.
Yeah, hi Kate. I'm from Australia, and in our town we think there's one small child with Angelman who's our son. So do you think other children with not related, but similar levels of disability could work together in a similar kind of way?
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot because I also, like I said, do a lot of Rett syndrome work, so I thought about joining the two, but we have enough of a population that I don't need to, but it could totally work with, I think, any apraxia-related disorder. I think it's so cerebral palsy, even kids with Down syndrome so severe that they're non-speaking, I think that you could totally make it work. I think if you increase the variety of disabilities, you're going to have to increase your level of flexibility. So start yoga now, and then you can start the group in a month or so. Go ahead.
Hi, Kate. I very much enjoyed your talk. You've talked about the younger kids and then the tweens. What about adults with Angelman syndrome? There's a tremendous need for many of them when they were younger did not have access to this technology because it wasn't out there. Would this be relevant, and I think it definitely would be relevant, but how would you adapt what you've done with the younger kids and the tweens for an adult population?
I think I'd start very similar to what we did with tweens, possibly even identically. I'd love to have adults in the group. I just don't, we'd have to get on finding them and getting them there. But I'm going to start finding a space first, and then I'll recruit more people. No, I think it could totally work for adults. One of the things that I envision long term, maybe not next year, but the year after, is doing it more of an outings for the older kids, more of an outings based thing. And I think that could work really well for adults. If you found a couple of like sensory aware outings that you could do where you met ahead of time and you talked about going to the sensory friendly movie and, you know, had the visuals for doing it, and then you went to the movie, and then you could meet the next time, talk about having gone to the movie. I think that might be better for adults than sort of the school style stuff that we were doing. But I'd love to try it. It's definitely worth a shot.
Yeah, I think that's very appropriate because most of the adults are in a community-based training environment rather than a school-based training environment.
Yeah.
So that's okay.
I mean, my work for Easter Seals, I also go into day habs quite a bit. So, and I think just from what I've seen in day habs, I think anything that was, you know, a well-staffed activity would be awesome for a lot of the adults I end up seeing. So, yeah.
Hi, it was a very enlightening talk. I attended Erin's workshop in Sacramento last week, and I have a daughter who is 2. And I think I want to start with AAC as soon as possible. It's never too early to start. So she helped me create some signboards to start off with, and I believe looking at all the options, the pod is the best way to go forward, at least at the start. So my question is very specific to creating a pod book.
Okay.
It seems like it's got a lot of science to do it, and I believe there's a lot of research that's already gone into it. Is there an easy way to get all that learning in the form of a pod book, or do I have to go through the whole process?
You mean of physically making the book?
Yes.
Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
All right, so my secret way of making a pod easy, and I only do it when I'm going to make a pod the hard way so that I have everything customized. But if I need one fast, is I find somebody who already has one, and I bring it to a place with a color photocopier, and I photocopy it. So that's my secret, make it fast so you can start now. And then in the meantime, build your one that you're going to customize and print and make gorgeous. But you don't want to wait the 2 or 3 months. I mean, I've been working on her daughter Samantha's pod for 6 months just because all that I recently decided I'm going to hire my cousin's 13-year-old to cut all the tabs on the pod because I just can't take it anymore. So, but I would, or the other thing I frequently do on my own is I'll go on Facebook and I'll say, if your kid just graduated from the 9 pod to the 12 pod, send me the 9. Or if you were using pod and you decide to go in another direction and you're not using it, I'll pay for shipping. So you could try that too. And you might find some people who are like, yeah, we have a 9 and we're using the 20 now, so here you go. So that can be worth a shot. But color photocopier is my secret on that one. Shh, don't tell. You shouldn't do that. It's copyright infringement.